Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Frontline Access. I'm Daniel Smadjevitz, and
I'm Russell Koshoff. How you guys doing?
I see you didn't quite make the intro yet, so you're still on that tryout contract.
You guys still got me on the 10 days. I think we're at more than 10 days. It's a 2-week contract, but we'll see if you sign me to the extension, Big Smash.
You know, I got to say, we did get some great feedback from your first appearance on Frontline Access. I'll read you some of the quotes. Bubby Kovashov said, "Such amazing insight. Great addition to the show." Zadie K said, "My boy chick did so well." And an RK sent a soliloquy, but he said, "Funny, intelligent, and handsome." So I don't know who these people are. They might have something in common, but they'd loved your appearance.
Oi, Kanay no horror. My kishkas are hurting, man. Thank you so much. That's so kind.
It's great to have you back, and it's great to be back on Frontline Access tonight. We do have a great show ahead, and before we get into that, did you see that the token Jew in the NFL, Julian Edelman, retired?
Yeah, he did. And you know what? For us, token Jews in football, which I happen to be one of them when I played 5 years in university, I can tell you, like he really made an impact on a lot of us Jewish boys who play that sport. So it's sad to see him go. But, hey, everybody's got to call it quits at some time, and it's good to see that he's continuing in other places.
You know what I love is that recently, when he was still an active player, he stepped up when you had certain guys, Deshaun Jackson, what comes to mind, have some unsavory things to say about the Jews and, misrepresenting history. He came up and he offered to educate them. He offered to meet with them. So he really took the high road. And listen, it takes the guts for athletes to do that, especially in the NFL.
I think, you saw that thing that happened with Myers Leonard, and he obviously not a good situation, but Julian Edelman was like, hey, I want to take you out. I want to show you, what we are, and also like probably get the ignorance out of you. But what the good part is that just shows his character, and that's what all of us should, try to be. It's not about just somebody at first. Some people don't understand what they're saying when they say these words, and we should be there to support them and coach them through those moments. It's what we are. That's what we are, man.
Big question. Is he a Hall of Famer?
Oh, I don't know, man. I mean, how many rings does he have?
He has 3 rings, I think, and he has at least 1 Super Bowl MVP.
I think that's Hall of Fame quality. If you're a Super Bowl MVP, should you not be a Hall of Famer? That's a good thing we should chew on at some point here. What makes a Hall of Famer in the NFL?
That could be for next episode. I think he's just borderline. I mean, honestly, Julian Edelman, I love him. I love his character. He was fun watching him play. He was the go-to guy for Brady, but I don't know if he's borderline Hall of Fame in my books. I'd love to see him in, though.
I would love to see him in, but let's maybe talk about somebody who's not winning right now, the New York Yankees.
Worst 15-game start since '97, and my Tampa Bay Rays swept them recently, so I'm very happy to see them.
Excuse me, what did you just say?
I said my Tampa Bay Rays. We're not all Blue Jays fans in this stream.
Your Tampa Bay Rays? Excuse me, you should be a Toronto Blue Jays fan. You're from Canada. Come on. Wear the flag, baby.
Grew up a Montreal Expos fan, and as an Expos fan, you can't cheer for Toronto, right? I'm not going to be cheering for Washington, and you got to go for the next lovable losers, and that's Tampa.
I feel like I'm gonna be I'm gonna feel like I'm being my mom telling me I have to date a Jewish girl and telling me to do that immediately. But I'm now gonna tell you in my way, you need to be a Blue Jays fan, and you have to be a Blue Jays fan. So we have to take that attitude. We gotta take you and make you, eat the right bird seed. The Blue Jays, baby.
When we had Shai Davidi and Dan Schulman on last year, and by the way, it's 1 year since Frontline Access began, so a big thank you to everyone who helps put this show together. But last year, we had Shai and Dan on for back-to-back episodes. They almost got me on the fence because they have such a great team in Toronto. The young talent is fantastic, and they're going to do really well. But I don't know if I can make that jump up to 401.
All right. Well, I think I had, I don't know, man. I don't know. Just like I don't know about the Super League. Okay, like I don't get it. I don't get it, and I don't like it. And I think it's bad for soccer. What do you think?
Well, you're in luck because it lasted 56 hours. It is dead on arrival. It's done.
Perfect.
Super League is over.
Perfect.
It took tweets from, I believe it was, I don't know what he's the king in waiting. He's Charles' son, William or Harry, whatever his name is. It took tweets from them. It took Boris Johnson to weigh in. It is done.
Killed it. Listen, that's greed. That's greed. That wasn't for the love of the game. That was strictly for money and sport. Although yes, it is about money to an extent. It's bigger than that in this regard. So I'm really happy that they were talking like UEFA came in on FIFA was like, if you play in this league, you're not allowed. You're disqualified. Like it was some pretty big stuff. Really big stuff in that regard.
But doesn't some part of you want to see the best teams play against the best teams at all times? It's like a constant World Cup. It just keeps happening. Part of me is drawn into that kind of league. I mean, I don't watch too much Champions League. I don't watch too much UEFA, but I do watch the World Cup. I do watch the Euro.
Well, I can tell you one thing. If you want to be the best, you got to work hard at it. And sometimes it's great to see the underdog story and the people who don't make all the money and the people who put the hard work and effort in. And you know what? That's a great segue into people who put effort in and break down barriers. For example, the Miami Marlins general manager. And you know exactly who that is, Kim Ang. And she inspires me. She inspires me. Like this lady worked her butt off, and now she is one of the first female general manager in Major League Baseball. And I know, Smad, you're a bigger baseball fan than me, so I'm going to throw it over to you for your thoughts on that.
You know what? I think you just said it correctly. Like she's breaking those glass ceilings, and it's fantastic to see someone female in that position. You look at the Yankees as the example of stability in the front office. Brian Cashman's there, I believe, for 20 years or nearing 20 years. And, I only hope that she will lead to such success in the front office because Miami's been a team that's struggling. New ownership recently with Derek Jeter leading the way. So for them to take a risk on a great baseball mind because she did some good things outside of Miami, I think it's fantastic. And as you said, it's a segue into the three guests that we have tonight who are incredible female athletes in their own regard.
And you know what? I think the great part about sports now is finally we have this great movement where it's just not about men. I work in sports entertainment, as you know, Smudge, and like it's just so great to see more front offices full of women like Teresa Resch with the Toronto Raptors, and seeing coaches across breaking barriers, especially even in the NFL with the two coaches on the Bucks.
Give some credit to Bruce Arians because he was the guy who hired Jen Welter in Arizona. Then he comes to Tampa and he hires two female coaches, Maral Jaffidar, I definitely butchered her last name, and Lori Locust, two Super Bowl winning coaches, first two females to win a Super Bowl, plus add, the icing on the cake. This Super Bowl had Sarah Thomas as the first female to ref in a game.
Wow.
So
see,
it's
that's what's about, like, it's just woo! Hey, we're getting cheers tonight. We're getting cheers tonight.
Do you guys hear the next Super Bowl winning coach, my daughter Avery, crying?
Oh, Avery, a great name for a coach too. Avery, hang in there, Avery. Yeah. It's okay. That'll be done soon.
Yeah, it's at that point where I can tune her out, but you guys can't.
Hey, listen, man, I can tell you there's some amazing people in sports entertainment and in sports and in this field that I get to work in here and there. And the one thing that's amazing is to see more women in leadership positions. A great example would be like the Clippers, for example, have the only female president in the NBA.
I didn't know that. That's great.
Yeah, Gillian Zucker. So like there's so many, also Jewish. So, there's a lot of great success stories, and just like the successes that we're going to be, of the women we're going to speak to tonight, which is really exciting. And I'm excited to share this time with you, Smudge, and getting the opportunity to speak with them.
Yeah, well, we have three incredible Canadian collegiate athletes coming up. The first off, Sasha Gaulish. She is probably the only athlete who can beat Rosie Ruiz in a marathon. She has won medals at the Pan Am Games. She has also crushed it at the Maccabee Games. She was named athlete of the game, female athlete of the games in 2017. I believe she got the recognition from Israel's own Bar Raffaeli. She can confirm or deny that story. Then we also have an incredible swimmer, the female Michael Phelps, Michelle Phelps, University of Ottawa's Dana Sherrard.
No big deal. No big deal.
No big deal. Michelle Phelps is no big deal, of course. And then the fastest pitcher in Mcmaster University history, Rachel Bugis. I hope I didn't butcher your last name, Rachel. But Rachel.
Rachel Speed Pew Bugis right there. That's what we got. That's it right there. Amazing.
And we're excited to share their stories. We're excited to have them on because it's about time we recognize not only great female athletes, but great Canadian collegiate athletes. Because, Russ, you play college sports yourself. So tell me a little bit about that. Tell me about the mindset of a collegiate athlete in Canada. It's a bit different than the States, right?
It's tough. It's tough. And, there's less support when you go to university. You're not at a Division I school where you have, luxuries like a chocolate milk fountain and like, state of the art, workout facilities. You are working hard and you're putting money and time and effort. And a lot of these athletes that we're talking to today have to work even harder than like I played football than a football player had to. So it's really, really an interesting and really hard place to drive into. And one thing in particular about sports, a lot of these kids in high school, with girls in high school, don't know there's an avenue that they can go to get to that next level. And so hearing from these amazing collegiate athletes tonight and award winners and all sorts of things is going to be super awesome. So I'm excited. And hey, listen, I'm looking forward to learning from them with you tonight, Smash. I lost my words there for a second.
Just, you mentioned, some of the luxuries that we have, American university athletes have. Tell me what a Canadian college campus is like for an athlete. I mean, this is a question you can put to them, but I want to put it to you first.
For me, I went to the University of Waterloo. I played 5 years there of football. It was quite an interesting time. We can talk about another story that there was a headline throughout my time at Waterloo. But the biggest thing is you're going to class, you're working out, you are Monday to Friday, and in some weekends you're literally it is class, workout, practice, film, back to class, back to practice, then it's game time, and there's so much. There's so much involved in that piece. And to learn about that and be in it is difficult, especially when you're an individual athlete, like a swimmer, for example. The time and effort you're putting in the pool. A lot of people don't realize swimmers go in the pool at like 5 or 4 o'clock in the morning. They're in that pool nice and early, and they're doing their whole day, and then they have to keep up with their calories and their training. There's a lot of pieces involved. And when you got to throw the fastest baseball in Mcmaster history, there's got to be a lot of effort into that, especially winning a Pan Am medal. So I think we have some really, really great stories we're going to hear about today, their journeys, and also some tips that all of us can take back to how much hard work and effort and dedication, how much more respect we should have for these collegiate athletes.
Well, that's a question I'm definitely going to put to them is, of course, for Dana and Sasha, who are individual athletes, the training, what goes through, how the mental toughness they have to have to, get to that point, be as successful as they are. And of course, it's different when you have Rachel, who has the team mentality, as a team around her, but still training, just because you're on a team doesn't mean they're lifting you up. You're still training. You're still in the workout room by yourself. You're still doing this and accountable to yourself.
Listen, it's a constant schwitz, all right? You're schwitzing. From the moment you're in sports, you don't stop schwitzing. It's a hustle, and it's what it is, man. And you know what? These women, they're incredible. I'm at awe at the fact that I get to be a part of this. So I'm really, really excited. Really excited.
So, without further ado, let's bring them in. Sasha Gaulish, Dana Sherrard, and Rachel, because I can't pronounce your last name. Hello, everyone. How are you guys doing tonight?
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
So before we begin, Rachel, how do I pronounce your last name?
It's pronounced Bugis.
Bugis. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much. So thank you guys for joining us on Frontline Access. We're so excited to have you. As we said in the intro, you guys are 3 of the best collegiate athletes that we have, 3 of the best Jewish collegiate athletes, more importantly. So we're excited to talk to you. So first things first, we're going to start with the eldest statesman in the room, Dr. Gaulish. Tell us about your athletic journey. I know it only started recently, right? At the age of 30?
I don't think that's quite fair. I was a high school athlete. I did all the OFSA track and field, cross country, and Nordic skiing but sort of had, I guess, what you would call your sort of stereotypical dropout partway through my university degree. I was burnt out and overtrained. So let's talk about the positive, exciting part. I mean, there was lots of good back then, but I came back to athletics. I actually think I was 32, not 30, so even older. I came back to the track. I was working full-time as an engineer, working sort of like consulting engineering hours. Those are fun. And not really getting to see a bunch of my friends. So I was sort of looking to stay active and get more socialization in. So I came back to the track, and I have the Cinderella story. I did sit in and listen. So it was mentioned that I was a Pan Am medalist, but I actually lost my shoe in that race. So I took this, I had the fairy tale return to sport where, I climbed back up the rankings and won a medal at the first track I ever ran a 1500 in. And I've continued with sport, and I'm, looking forward to trying to qualify for Tokyo 21, whatever that might be, but just putting myself out there as an athlete.
Wow.
That's amazing. Now, Dana, because you're next up in my box, on to you. Tell us how your career began.
Mine began much younger. I was like 12 or 11, I think, like that. And I was pretty much doing all sports. Like most kids, parents put them in all sports. But then I fell in love with the water at swim class. And from then on, it was swimming lessons every day and right into competitive swimming. And I've been doing that for about 10 years now. Yeah. And just retired, actually, even though so young, but just retired.
Mazel tov.
Thank you.
Now, just before we move on to Rachel, what goes into the mindset of retiring, while you're still in college, while you're still in the prime of your career?
It was a long and really hard decision, actually. I went back and forth with it for many months. And basically, this is my last year in university, and I knew I didn't necessarily want to pursue it beyond university. I've had a phenomenal career here with the GGs, and I've loved my time, but what's next to come is also exciting. And with COVID and not having any racing abilities and very limited training, it was more beneficial for me to put my time and effort into education and finish off with good grades in swimming. So I had to tear myself away from the pool, but still as active as I can be in the gym, and will never get away from sports or just generally training because I can't. But yeah, definitely academics came first in this scenario just because of COVID. If it wasn't COVID, I totally would be swimming at this moment.
So we'll follow up on COVID because that's one of our questions soon. So, but on to Rachel now. Welcome. Tell us about your journey to Mcmaster softball.
Thank you. Yeah, so I would say mine started even before 12. So I started playing baseball, actually like hardball, at the age of 5 or 6, t-ball, blast ball type thing. And I played all high school sports, basketball and volleyball. But in about grade 9 or 10, I realized that I wanted to take baseball more seriously, but that meant switching to softball because women play softball. So I switched to softball and started playing outside of high school in a more competitive league. And then I never really thought that I would pursue softball in university until I went to Maccabi in 2017, actually. And I think it was in that tournament where I realized this was something that I could pursue after high school. So that's what I did. And that's what I ended up at Mcmaster. And I'm now in 3rd year. So I'm still there, but not right now because of COVID. So, but hopefully come September, we will have our season.
Crazy. It's a really interesting to see how COVID has impacted so many young athletes in particular too, as well as international level athletes who are trying to get to that next level, like Tokyo, like you said, Sasha, and Rachel, how it's impacted the timeline for you being at school, being with with the squad, and keeping yourself trained and being able to get in the gym. So I can imagine it's been pretty impactful for all of you. So just to go around the table here, and maybe I'll throw it back to you, Dana. How has COVID impacted your training? Like even just for your team, I know you're retired, but talk about swimming and then we'll go to the team side, and then we'll throw it over back to Sasha.
Yeah, so our team has actually been extremely lucky, and our school facility has worked with our coaches like tremendously to make sure our pool has pretty much been open the entire time, restricted to those athletes who are on their respective national teams, because we have international swimmers as well, and those who are under the qualification for Olympic trials. So they've been allowing us to stay open the entire time, which is phenomenal. For those few. Other than that, we have weekly like Zoom meetings with our strength coaches. We have girl chats and guys chats that are just going every day back and forth to trying to keep up with our teams and stay active. And a bunch of us are now on like running apps and keeping track on each other and like seeing who's beating each other on the run, or like making fun routes and passing each other on the routes and things like that. So we're trying to keep spirits alive. I think our team's done a really great job. We actually were even able to put together a IGGSL, which basically ISL is the International Swim League that has just started this past year or 2 years. And we made a GG version of it, and we were able to get a few really reduced meets in and get some unofficial times on the board, which was great. So it kind of kept us in the racing mode and like the energetic team spirit, which is quite great of the school to do.
Got to stay fast in the pool, and I know the swimmer lingo is that she's fast, and so
yeah,
that's awesome. And talking about fast, let's go to the fastest pitcher, Rachel.
Thanks. Yeah. So our school, this season has been basically completely shut down. Back in August, Mcmaster announced that all spring sports were not allowed to hold team practices or anything of the sort. And I'm actually from Vancouver, so I didn't even go back to Hamilton this term or this whole year. So I haven't seen my teammates. We do have group chats, so we, like Dana was saying, we kind of keep the spirits alive in that way. But yeah, as far as competing, it was shut down as well. There was supposed to be our nationals. It all occurs September, October, because that's when the weather is, you're able to play outside. And that was almost sort of peak COVID spread. So nothing really took place. And our coaches have been communicating with us. We have team Zoom calls again sometimes, but especially with baseball, it's hard to you can't really practice by yourself unless you have someone to play catch with. Luckily, I have a brother who is willing to do that with me. But aside from that, it's been difficult. It's been really difficult to stay up with the sports, especially being so far removed from the team as well.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I'm sure your brother's hand also hurts because you probably throw quite fast. And I want to throw it over to Dr. Gaulish, because like I think the one thing that's so interesting is, you know, you've reached that next level pinnacle of international sporting events with the Pan Am medal, and like you're talking about qualifying for Tokyo. And I'm like, how has this time impacted you for training? How have you been able to get creative? I can't even imagine.
It's some peaks and valleys this week. Last week's been since Friday, I'd say I've been pretty much despondent. So, which sounds pretty awful. It's been hard. I didn't get to run with my teammates all winter. So, you know, we're challenged with weather, right? So as a track runner, yeah, you can go for a run outside, but it's not specific. I did the best that I could with the treadmill this winter. I learned a Nordic ski in the woods. In the last month, just before the announcement on Friday here in Ontario, I was able to train with my teammates again. And it was a good reminder of how magical it is. And it's been tough, like to say the least. It's been tough. You know, I can sort of stay at that 85% ready to go, but we're closing in on the crunch time, right? It's competitive season now. So back to some solo workouts, which is I'm the worst at, but trying to get through it. So building my mental toughness to get out there on my own.
And I'm just curious real quick for you, Sasha. Is this going to put, you know, Canadian athletes at a disadvantage, you think, at international sporting events, given this thing?
I don't think we're special. I think that there's various countries that are at a disadvantage. I can't remember if swimming's gone to this point system too. So it's about how fast you run, but also the meets that you get into. And I think ISL is actually really trying to undo some of that. I've read a lot about it. Really like what's going on there. I don't think we're special and that we're disadvantaged. I think we're disadvantaged like some of the other countries out there. And I think it's really going to change the face of how athletics unfolds this year at Tokyo 2021. And I'm also curious if they're going to reduce field size. And I think one of the greatest questions I was asked lately, like they just revealed the Team Canada opening ceremonies jacket, which fine, just keep your opinions to yourself. But you can't have an opening ceremonies like that. Just seems like, let's put us all in this indoor stadium. Like it seems like a super spreader event.
Yeah.
So we won't talk about the Canadian tuxedo and even the super spreader event at opening ceremonies. And I'm not sure what regulations Tokyo has in place for fans or any of that. But we just hope the Olympics goes on for all of sport. But let's move on to the Jewish Olympics, the positive event that unites all of us. And so let's take us back to 2017. Once again, I'll start with the way you guys are set up on my screen with Dana. Take us back to your Maccabee Games experience and what memories you have from there and what you want to share from those times.
Yeah, so 2017 actually wasn't my first time. I was a junior in 2013, which was a whole different experience, being able to actually tour Israel. And I had a bunch of friends that I met worldwide that are still close friends, and I've actually ran into them at other swim meets and things like that. But then 2017 was great because my best friend was able to join me on the team, and my twin sister actually was able to join the tennis team as well. And so having both of them there and being able to win 2 medals for Canada as well was phenomenal. Again, met so many more people that will forever be friends and be connected through this event. But just being able to represent Canada and Canadian Jews specifically was probably like one of the coolest and like most memorable times that I will have, especially standing on like the podium there.
That's awesome. And now on to you, Rachel. Different sport, team sport, a little more less opportunities for medal because you just have one round robin and that's it. So tell us about the softball competition and your Maccabee experience.
Yeah, Maccabee was an absolutely incredible experience for me. Like I said before, I went when I was 17 and I joined the women's team because there was no junior age group. And I thought, I don't know, this might be a little bit weird. Everybody's kind of like 25 or even 30. We had a player who was 32, I think. But as soon as I met my team, it was in Toronto. We had that week of training before we went. I knew it was going to be a great experience, and it was. And we stayed in a hotel on the beach in Tel Aviv. We got that nice sort of part of Israel, and I had been to Israel before, and most of my teammates hadn't. So that was sort of an interesting thing for me. I was able to communicate in Hebrew with the bus drivers and things like that with my teammates, which sort of encouraged the camaraderie right away. And as for the sport itself, the competition was a really high level. And that was, like I said as well before, kind of the first time that I realized that softball was something that I could pursue post high school and did end up doing that. And we were able to not beat the US in the finals, but we did win a silver medal and cannot wait to go back, hopefully, fingers crossed, 2022 to get the gold medal. But yeah, it was an incredibly sort of almost eye-opening experience. And plus the fact that everybody was Jewish, I kept having to remind myself of that because in sports, I'm sure the other athletes can relate, you're almost always the only Jewish athlete on the team. And so that was also something where I almost had to keep reminding myself, hey, everybody here is Jewish, so.
I think that's the one uniting factor about the Maccabee Games. And Russ, maybe you can weigh. Well, actually, I'm going to get to Sasha first, and Russ, you can weigh in because you're also a former college athlete yourself. So, Sasha, you were the best female athlete at the 2017 Games. Tell us about your experience. And I remember watching you race at the track and field. You just blew by me. I was there with my camera. You just kept running by me. And just tell us about that. Tell us about the whole Games experience for you.
Sure. So I actually flew in late. So I was at the Canadian National Championships. And I drove straight from Ottawa to Toronto, picked up my bag, got on a plane, and flew to Tel Aviv. So I missed flying with the team, but I had a lovely flight over with a fabulous flight attendant who got me to sleep very quickly because I had to then race like almost the next day after arriving. So that sleep on the plane was really crucial. So I'm wearing this lovely lemon shirt here. I run for this company called Oiselle, and it's the feminine of oiseau. And I tell this story because, Daniel, if you remember in the 800, this woman, Rebecca Mera, and I were like neck and neck finishing. And I had run the 5,000 about, I think it was like 20 minutes before the 800. But Rebecca's now my teammate as part of Oiselle. And she's been a really positive force actually this last week as it's been really challenging. So, we've all sort of talked about making friends for life. I made a friend for life, and then I actually got to pick her up and bring her as part of the team that I'm part of. So, like the other two women said, it was a really awesome, positive experience. I stayed in Tel Aviv a bit. Oh my gosh, I can't even remember now. I was so tired. It happened all so quickly, but definitely a memorable experience. And I remember making sure I stayed after to get to see more of the country. So in 2013, I also competed. I did the Maccabia woman, and I've never in my life been so tired as when I did that event.
Love that.
So that's a vote of confidence to compete in that event.
Sure. Take a vacation after your vacation.
I do remember that race so well. I think afterwards I took a picture of you holding the Canadian flag draped around your shoulders. And since then, people should Google Rebecca because she got very famous for a tweet at the beginning of the pandemic,
Yes.
I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she is a fantastic, great teammate of yours. So Russ, I'm going to turn over to you because you have something in common with these three female athletes because you also were the token Jew on a college campus.
I was always the token. Like I went to high school and I was the only Jew at my high school on the football team. My coach called me the Hebrew Hammer. I remember the days. I played linebacker. I remember the days when like it'd be like Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah, and there's always football season. And it's like your parents are like, you shouldn't be playing or going to practice, and your friends are like, why did you miss practice? And like there's so many things. I feel like the stuff I told you, Smudge, I'm missing right now. Like my teammates being like, what's Hanukkah? I've never heard of that before. It's just all those different things. But anyways, one thing that I can definitely relate to is this is the great one. I know the Lord's Prayer because of being the only Jew on a football team in particular. The things that you just, it's actually really interesting. It's a great educator, and it's something that I embraced because it's the meaning is what counts. But anyways, with that being said, all three of you, I'm sure, have been tokens in your own realm. What kind of stories do you have or things you kind of overcame when it comes to that? Because listen, sometimes it can be quite interesting. I mean, I've had some interesting coaches tell me some interesting things. So, maybe share some about that, what it's like to be a token Jew and also, hold the flag and for us Jews out there. I'll start with you, Dr. Gaulish.
I just muted myself. Always good. So my birthday is December 27th. And so all of my athlete friends would be like, oh, that's the worst. It's right after Christmas. And I was like, Christmas? It's fine. Like sometimes it's in Hanukkah, sometimes it's not. Either way, totally milk trying to get extra presents, not less presents. So that was sort of like my reminder. So I grew up as an alpine ski racer. And so my birthday was always the first day of alpine ski, sort of like the open to the season. And it would be like that. What did you do for Christmas? What did you do for Christmas? And I was like, we had Hanukkah. We had candles, and we had with the menorah. We lit the menorah every day, and I got 8 crazy presents. It was good. So yeah, I'm also an engineer.
Wow.
and I studied at U of T. I'm now teaching there, and I'm often the token Jew in the room, right? I'm the token athlete, the token Jew, the token female. So, wearing all those various hats, like, it's such an honor to wear those various hats every day.
You definitely represent us well, Sasha, on the world stage. And Rachel, I know you referred to this as well, but like, tell us a little bit about your experience too.
Yeah, well, again, still, I was the token Jew. I went to a Jewish high school, so my school sports, I obviously was not the token Jew, but softball was outside of school. And I can recall in grade 12, I participated in March of the Living, which is, I'm sure you're familiar. It's a 2-week trip. First to Poland, you visit the concentration camps, and then to Israel after that. And it took place at the time. It was the first 2 weeks of our softball season. And I had to tell my coach, listen, I'm going to be away. And my teammates, they looked at me like, well, first of all, what are you doing? It isn't spring break, but my spring break was different because it was Passover break, not spring break. And I said, I'm going on a trip where I'm going to visit the concentration camps in Poland. And I sort of got a bunch of sort of confused faces. I said, from World War II, the Holocaust. And 3 or 4 of my teammates said, well, what's that? And I, as a Jewish person who went to a Jewish high school, this was one of the first times where I couldn't believe someone had never heard of something like, had never heard of the Holocaust. I was thinking, how have you, how is this possible? So that was a memorable, definitely standout moment. But things still occur in university for sure. Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah, exactly the same thing. If we have weekend tournaments or practice, I can't go. But I think everyone's very interested to learn about it because they often haven't met anybody Jewish, which again is a shocker to me. But it definitely makes it interesting. Yeah.
The only similarity I have is when my mom was like, Russell, you're going to Camp Northland. I don't care. You're a CIT, and I was playing football, and we were like 5-0 in the summer, and I'm like, guys, I'm going to camp. I'm leaving, and they're like, why are you going to camp? This is our year. We're gonna make it. And I'm like, I'm going to camp, and I just remember being so devastated. But hey, that's a part of who I am, and I thank camp for making me who I am. So it's like those experiences that make you who you are that probably makes you a even greater athlete, more gritty. And I'll throw it over to you over there in the pool. What was that experience like for you? Because I don't think there's a lot of Jewish swimmers, if I'm not correct.
There's a few pretty big names, to say the least, a few Olympic gold medalists and world record holders, but mainly men. I think very few women. So definitely different in that realm, but it was the same thing, like how you guys chose almost Judaism over sports, because that was your thing. I think I made the worst decision, and I decided not to go on March of the Living because of a national championship, which I will still regret to this day. So good on you guys for choosing the other way. But it's just things like trying to make the hard decisions, one or the other, figuring out how to do triple practices in a day on Yom Kippur where I'm not eating, and like how to pace myself, and my coaches being really accepting of me maybe not going the best times in practice or things like that. Or if it happens to land on a competition, knowing that yes, I have obligations in one direction, but in the end of it, if I eat a few things because I need to fuel myself to race well, like, it's not the end of the world, and I'm okay. So just finding the in-between state where I'm being a quote-unquote good Jew and still being a safe and strong athlete was probably the hardest part of doing that and figuring out the balance.
It's an incredibly tough balance because, even though you're swimming alone, you're still swimming, part of a grander team. You're still trying to represent yourself, your school, your country, whatever you're racing at. So it's I don't even want to be in that position. And thankfully I'm not a good athlete, so I'll never be in that position. Question. I mean, we were talking about you as individuals, your successes. I want to know, what's the toughest competition that you faced in your respective sports? And Dana, we'll start with you because, once again, you're the first one on my screen.
I don't know if I can pick one competition solely that was the toughest. About 2 years ago, I tore my shoulder and had complete shoulder reconstruction surgery. So that took me out for a whole year. And to qualify for youth sports and swimming, you have to qualify either after February 1st from the year before or the year of competition. So being out for a year, that wiped me of all my qualifications for our championships, and not swimming for a whole year and coming back and pushing through training from basically swimming. They say if you're out of the water for a week, it's like not starting from scratch, but close enough. Like you need to be feeling the water every day, basically. Funny thing is, coaches say if you can't get in the water, fill your bathtub up and scull, just so you get the feeling on your hands. But yeah, so doing that for basically, I was in a sling for 6 months. So I was basically starting from scratch at that point, not even physically active at all. So coming back from that would be my hardest thing. And then I ended up requalifying in a completely different stroke. I was a butterflyer for 9 years of my career, and in my final year I set the GG record in 50 backstroke out of literally nowhere. So my injury brought new things I could do and showed me I was tough enough to push through it, and I still got to go to my final championship, which gladly was about a month and a half before COVID hit. So I got that little sneak in before everything shut down. But yeah, pushing through, just coming back from basically nothing and learning how to work my new shoulder was probably tougher than any one competition.
Wow, that's understandable. So on to you, Dr. Gaulish. I'm sure you've suffered many injuries along the way and also have had tough competitions actually on the track. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think actually, Dana, something resonated with me when you said that. I actually think the toughest thing was coming back at 32, right? You're graduated, you have a job. I had a master's. I was coaching alpine skiing and kind of running for fun. And the toughest thing was actually to, so many people, they don't mean it by judgment, but like that, are you going to make the sacrifice to choose sport? And it's like, it's not a sacrifice, it's a choice. And, you're going to leave the real world and go run. It's like, but it's my real world. Right. And I think having the courage to just say, this is what I want. I think that was actually the toughest thing that I've had to do in my competition career.
Wow. That's pointed. And I think all athletes can agree with that. It's your world. It's what you want to do. It's your passion. And Rachel, I see you nodding your head. Same question over to you.
Yeah. I'll take it more in the toughest competition way. So I can, obviously it's kind of hard to choose the hardest game, the hardest tournament. There have been plenty of difficult teams playing with Mcmaster even before that. But the one standout moment was for Maccabiah, and it was one of the United States pitchers. Was nothing like I've ever seen, and I haven't seen anything like that since either. I looked her up, Googled her. We were all kind of struggling to hit, you could say. She was the pitcher for Princeton at the time.
Wow.
And I can remember hitting, maybe it was my second or third time facing her, and I had been relatively unsuccessful at that point, and I hit a ground out, which is not necessarily anything good, but I remember feeling relieved just because I was able to hit the ball. Like it was something that was very, very incredible, and my whole team we were kind of in shock about the level of this pitcher. It was really remarkable. She was the reason, arguably, that they were able to win the tournament. It was incredible. But yeah, that would be my most difficult competition.
Well said. Wow.
Wow, and even repping Canada, we were showing pictures of you there. I'm hoping that brought back some fun memories for you.
Definitely.
Hey, listen, we're starting to wrap up, so we're gonna ask one last question, and this question is really important. We want to know what advice you all have for young athletes, young Jewish women who are up and coming and trying to put their foot in the top of their game in their sport. What piece of advice you have? We'll start with Dr. Gaulish, and then we'll go Rachel into you, Dana.
Always take the risk, right? I think, I think back to coming back to sport, I took the risk to come back. Every time you step on the line, you take the risk. And I think one of the most special things about being Jewish is the Jewish community, because when you take risks, at some point you're going to fall, and you learn so much from when you fall. But when you fall and a whole bunch of people catch you to help you get back up, like, you just have the courage to try and take that next risk. So all the little girls out there, please take that risk.
Dive right in. Over to you, Rachel.
I would say relatively similar, but it's don't sell yourself short. I think that, first of all, as a female, it's important to believe that you can be just as athletic as the boys, or especially growing up in elementary, high school. And secondly, be proud of your Judaism within whatever sport you play. And don't be afraid to say, hey guys, I'm not coming to practice. It's Yom Kippur. Even if you feel like that might be awkward or people won't understand, it'll help you grow, and it will help your teammates grow as well.
I think my biggest thing that I think learned the most through university is advocate for yourself. As much as your coaches know you and your teammates know you, there is no one who knows you better than yourself. And as a female in sport, you might be seen as not able to hit that pace or lift that weight or be able to train with this group of people. And if you think you can, say to your coach you want to, or try and fail. Like, it doesn't matter. It's like, just like Sasha said, take the risk, because if you advocate for yourself and at least show that you have self-autonomy and you believe that you can push forwards and you're believing in yourself, then it's going to be really hard for any male coach or coach at all to push back, especially if it's in front of people or clearly explained or backed up. It's going to be really hard for them to push back, and you will succeed if you push through it and keep advocating for yourself all the way.
I think that's awesome advice from all three of you. And you know what? I can't thank you girls enough for joining us tonight. You're inspiring, Jewish athletes, inspiring Canadian athletes. And I hope to see you back at the Maccabee Games in one capacity or another. Dana, we have staff applications are open. Rachel, as a pitcher, and Dr. Gaulish, you're still running. So we want you running for us in 2022.
Literally.
So thank you so much for joining us tonight. Thank you for your time. And I look forward to seeing every one of you in Israel next summer.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Russ, that was awesome.
I want to run through a brick wall after talking to those girls. They got me so inspired.
You know what? The one thing I'm going to take away is Dr. Gaulish's advice, telling you to please take that risk. And I think that applies in all sports, but especially for, our young athletes who, they're afraid or they're being coddled too much with their participation trophies. No, take that risk, go for it. And, that's how you're going to succeed. You might fail a little bit, but that's how you're going to succeed.
It's okay to lose, just like Smadge is going to lose to me in tennis. But that's just how it is, guys. You need to learn how to lose. And I know Smadge is going to be a good loser. So use him as a great example for you. But, in all seriousness, it's important to know to taste victory and to taste loss. And you could probably see that when you see a perfect team lose in the playoffs. They don't know how to lose.
Yeah, that's why the Leafs haven't won a Stanley Cup since 1967. But back to our panel, just to wrap it up, they're all three incredible athletes. They're all three medalists at either the Maccabee Games or with Sasha, going all the way to the Pan Games. And hopefully we'll see her in Tokyo this summer before next summer in Israel. But I'm blown away. I'm going to watch this show again so I can hear their advice again. But it was fantastic.
It was. And the one thing that each of those women had was this passion in their eyes. You can just see that they're hard workers. They work hard. They work just as hard or harder than men. And the fact is, they're leveling the playing field, and that's what this world's all about. So it was really inspiring.
Dana, I hope you're watching this still, and we have inspired you to come back. Unretire.
Unretire. Come on, unretire. Just like.
We'll dust off a 45 jersey for you. You can put it on and get in the pool.
Just like you should be dusting off your new kicks to try to beat me in tennis, Madge. That's what we need. That's what we need from you.
We got 10 centimeters of snow outside today, so I don't know what tennis court you're going to, but Anyway, Russ, it's been a great show. I'm going to close and say that, first off, the Maccabee Games registration is ongoing. Please, everyone visit McCubbyCanada.com, register for next summer's games. We're trying to field the delegation, record-setting delegation. Last time we had 600 athletes. Oh, you're doing it right now. Great. Who joined 10,000 athletes from 80 countries. And we're so excited to participate next summer. So please, McCubbyCanada.com and register for the games. And 2 weeks from now, we're excited for this guest. Joe Tilley is going to be joining us. And Russ, I know. Oh, there you go.
I'm applying. Yes, Joe Tilley.
Russ, I know you remember Joe Tilley, who was on CTV News Toronto for years, and he has an incredible personal story. He's gone through a lot as a human being, as a professional. So he's going to share that story with us. Plus, I'm sure we'll have time to talk a little bit about those terrible Maple Leafs, the so-so Blue Jays, with him.
Come on now. I'm really excited for Joe. He's amazing. And Smaj, it's always a pleasure.
Likewise, Russ. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you for tuning in.